NBC University Theater. NBC University Theater initially began production in Chicago with a remit to bring adaptations of classic novels, usually Anglo-American, to a radio audience. Additionally, if listeners signed up, they received college credit to a radio-assisted correspondence course. A study guide, the Handbook of the World's Great Novels, was available for 25 cents. In its later years, it also included short stories and plays, and went on to win the distinguished Peabody Award. Unlike many other radio shows, University Theater did not pursue the glamorous stars for its productions, but instead relied on excellent distillations of the novels and first-class acting alongside high production values. But now it's time to enjoy these timeless novels. Let's begin.
From the NBC Theater in Hollywood, an hour-length drama based on the F. Scott Fitzgerald short story, Babylon Revisited. Today's adaptation of Babylon Revisited has been prepared for the NBC Theater by Clarence A. Ross of NBC. Our intermission commentator will be the noted radio critic, John Crosby. The story we present today, Scott Fitzgerald's Babylon Revisited, is one of the finest of his short stories. It arises, in a very real sense, out of his own summing up of the period of years which was the most important in his own life. The story takes place in the early 1930s, but its motivation is in the lives led by its characters, and particularly by its protagonist, Charlie Wales, during the 1920s. The personal tragedy of Charlie Wales in 1931 is one possible arithmetical result to be obtained by adding up the years of the 1920s and dividing by the number of people present. One of the people very much present was Scott Fitzgerald. The decade of the 20s, the jazz age, as he called it, was his own. Some of his most perceptive and colorful writings are embodied in his essays on the jazz age, published recently under the title The Crack-Up. These thoughts of Fitzgerald's on the decade of the 20s form the significant background as well as the motivation for the story told in Babylon Revisited. Considering that a mirror is something of an abstraction when presented without the thing it is reflecting, we propose to introduce into our telling of the story those events and ideas which gave rise to it in the author's mind. Taking as our source material Fitzgerald's essays and notes in The Crack-Up, we allow Charlie Wales, as his story progresses, to remember, understand, and speculate on the reasons why things came to be thus and so. Herewith, Babylon Revisited, supplemented by Scott Fitzgerald's editorial notes on the jazz age. The next voice you hear will be that of Charlie Wales.
Once in the middle 20s, I was driving along the high Corniche road through the twilight with the whole French Riviera twinkling on the sea below. As far ahead as I could see was Monte Carlo. And though it was out of season and there were no Grand Dukes left to gamble, the very name was so incorrigibly enchanting that I could only stop the car and, like the Chinese, whisper, "Ah, me. Ah, me, ah, me, ah, me." But it was not Monte Carlo I was looking at. It was back into the mind of the young man with cardboard soles who had walked the streets of New York. I was him again. For an instant, I had the good fortune to share his dreams, I, who had no more dreams of my own. And there are still times when I creep up on him, surprise him on an autumn morning in New York or a spring night in Carolina, when it is so quiet that you can hear a dog barking in the next county. But never again as during that all too short period when he...
Sample complete. Ready to continue?